Fear is not the master, courage is. The village lived in shadows for generations, believing fear was their destiny. Every locked door and every silent street was proof of fear's power. When one boy stood with courage, the illusion broke. That moment showed that fear is nothing without permission, but courage, just a single act, can take control. One spark of hope can defeat endless darkness. Darkness felt eternal, stretching across every corner of their lives. Yet a single flame in a young man's hand changed everything. The torch was small, fragile, almost laughable against the mountain of shadows, but it proved a timeless truth. Hope doesn't need to be big. It only needs to exist. One spark can push back centuries of despair. Struggle is not punishment, it is preparation. The storm raged, the rain poured, and the boy's torch nearly died. Every villager thought his suffering was meaningless, a cruel punishment, but he discovered the truth. Struggle sharpens courage, shapes character, and builds resilience. His struggle wasn't destroying him. It was preparing him to lead a revolution. Without pain, the flame inside him could never grow stronger. Breaking points are not the end. They are turning points. On the night when his torch flickered and his knees hit the mud, he nearly gave up. That was supposed to be the end, but breaking points have a secret. They are disguised opportunities. When he remembered his mother's words, the weakness became strength, and the breaking became transformation. His lowest point became the very fire that lifted him higher than ever before. Courage spreads faster than fear when one heart stands tall. Fear had ruled the village for so long because no one dared to rise first. The moment one heart stood tall, courage spread like wildfire. Children, parents, elders, everyone felt the spark inside them. Fear is contagious, but courage is even more powerful. One person's bravery can awaken hundreds, and one torch can ignite 1,000 more. Great revolutions always begin with a single flame. The village thought change required miracles, but they were wrong. Revolutions don't begin with armies or wealth. They begin with one flame, one heart, one choice. That boy's single torch became a movement. The village transformed from silence to strength, from shadows to fire. Every great change in history begins this way, with one small light refusing to die. One spark of hope can defeat endless darkness. The village had lived under shadows for so long that people believed darkness was permanent. Nights felt heavier than days, and every sunrise looked weaker than the last. In their eyes, hope was nothing but a forgotten story. But when the boy held a single torch in his hand, the impossible started to look possible again. The torch was small, just a fragile flame trembling against the wind. The villagers laughed and mocked him, certain it would die in seconds. They said, "Oh, what can one tiny spark do against endless night?" But he did not listen to their doubt. He trusted the fire no matter how small, because he knew that hope is not measured in size. It is measured in strength. As he raised the flame high in the empty square, something strange happened. The shadows did not vanish completely, but they bent back. For the first time, the village saw that darkness was not unbreakable. Even the smallest light could carve space inside it. That tiny spark of fire was enough to make centuries of fear tremble. Children peeked from windows, their eyes wide with wonder. They had never seen light in the middle of the night. Their young hearts felt something they couldn't explain, something new, something powerful. That feeling was hope, and once hope enters a heart, it is almost impossible to erase. The villagers still doubted, but deep inside they felt the crack in despair. They realized darkness had been lying to them all along. It wasn't endless. It wasn't unbeatable. It had only ruled because no one had challenged it. And now, one young man with one spark of courage was rewriting the story for them all. That night, the torch became more than fire. It became a symbol that no matter how dark life feels, a single act of hope is enough to begin change. The boy had proven the timeless truth. One spark of hope is more powerful than 1,000 nights of fear. And once hope is born, it spreads faster than any shadow. Struggle is not punishment, it is preparation. The young man faced storms fiercer than his strength. The rain drowned his body, the wind clawed at his flame, and exhaustion crushed his spirit. At times he thought life was punishing him for daring to fight back. But in truth, life was not trying to destroy him. It was shaping him for something greater. Every hardship was a lesson. Every fall carved deeper resilience inside him. The pain in his muscles was not a curse. It was training. The sleepless nights were not wasted. They were sharpening his will. He realized that struggle was the universe's way of preparing him for battles yet to come. When villagers saw him suffer, they whispered, "He will break soon." But he knew breaking was part of becoming unbreakable. The struggle was hammering him like iron in fire, and iron does not complain when struck. It transforms into steel. That was his destiny, not to remain fragile, but to rise forged and indestructible. The nights tested him again and again. Each storm was harder than the last, each failure heavier than before. But the more he endured, the less the darkness could control him. His soul learned to breathe in chaos, and his courage grew fearless in the face of pain. The struggle was his teacher, not his enemy. One day he looked at his scars and realized they were not signs of weakness. They were medals of survival. Every wound told the story of how he had fought and refused to surrender. The same struggles that once made him cry had now turned him into someone unstoppable. And so the truth was clear. Struggle was never meant to punish him. It was meant to prepare him for greatness. Without storms, there is no strength. Without trials, there is no triumph. The boy understood. His flame did not survive in spite of struggle, it survived because of it. The power of silence is often misunderstood as weakness, but in reality it is one of the most powerful tools a person can possess. When you remain silent in moments of anger or conflict, you don't just avoid unnecessary battles, you actually maintain control over yourself. Silence allows emotions to settle, keeping you from saying things you might regret later. In silence, you gain clarity. Words can sometimes create confusion, but silence creates space for reflection. Great leaders, thinkers, and wise people throughout history have often chosen silence over meaningless arguments. They knew silence speaks louder than unnecessary words. Silence also gives you strength over others who seek to provoke you. When someone insults you, your silence confuses them. They expect a reaction, but your calmness shows your maturity. In that moment, silence becomes your armor. Silence is also a healer. In the quiet moments of life, when you sit alone and listen to your own thoughts, you often find answers you couldn't find in noise. It helps you connect with your inner self and builds inner peace. At times, silence can be the loudest response. When you don't respond to hate, negativity, or drama, your silence sends a message that you are above it all. It shows that your focus is not on proving others wrong, but on moving forward. The power of silence is not about saying nothing forever, but about choosing your words wisely. Speak only when your words have more value than silence. That is where true wisdom lies, knowing when to speak and when to let silence do the talking. Turning pain into power, every human being goes through pain, loss, betrayal, failure, heartbreak. But the strongest people are those who do not let pain break them. Instead, they learn to turn that pain into a source of power. They use it as motivation to rise higher than ever before. Pain is not meant to destroy you. It is meant to shape you. When you are broken, you begin to discover hidden strengths you never knew exist. You realize that the scars you carry are not signs of weakness, but marks of survival. Many successful people in history built their empires from pain. They used every rejection, every insult, and every loss as fuel to push forward. Pain became their teacher, teaching them resilience, patience, and determination. When you learn to embrace pain instead of running from it, you become unstoppable. The very things that were meant to break you start to empower you. You no longer fear challenges because you have already survived storms. Pain also teaches you empathy. Once you have suffered, you understand the struggles of others more deeply. You grow softer in heart, but harder in spirit. You learn to stand tall, not just for yourself, but for those who need your strength. In the end, pain is not your enemy. It is your greatest ally. It pushes you to grow, it fuels your hunger, and it sharpens your vision. When you turn pain into power, nothing in this world can stop you from becoming the person you were destined to be. The power of consistency. Consistency is the bridge between dreams and reality. No matter how big your goals are, without daily effort, they remain only wishes. Success is not built overnight. It is built brick by brick with consistent action over time. Think about water drops falling on a stone. A single drop cannot break it, but continuous drops over time can carve the stone. That is the power of consistency. It can achieve what seems impossible. Many people start with energy and passion, but they give up when results don't come quickly. The truth is, consistency demands patience. It may take weeks, months, or even years, but if you keep moving, success becomes inevitable. Consistency builds discipline, and discipline builds character. Every day you show up, even when you don't feel like it, you are training your mind to stay committed. That habit becomes the foundation of greatness. Look at athletes, writers, entrepreneurs. What separates them from others is not talent alone, but their ability to stay consistent. They practice when others rest, they work when others quit, and eventually the world calls them a lucky. Consistency is your silent superpower. It does not make noise, it does not seek attention, but over time, it creates results that speak louder than words. If you stay consistent, even the universe will align to open doors for you.